So I wanted to come at it from a different angle today and talk to you about kind of the story of a couple of our patients here, because you may find that you can identify with it. So it's a lot of women don't think that they have bladder leakage, and when in actuality they are dealing with the problem. And so I'm going to go through two different scenarios today where even if you don't think you have bladder leakage, you may actually be experiencing it. And I know people may be saying, like, really? How would I not know that I'm having bladder leakage? And I don't know, just tune in and see what you think as far as if you can identify in any of these situations. So the first situation is I want to talk to you about a patient of ours who, for sake of privacy, we're going to change her name to Susan. But Susan came in to see us and actually came in to see us for a hip pain issue. And she wasn't coming for bladder leakage at all. But we were doing her health history and finding out what was going on with her and checking out all her symptoms, and started talking about bowel and bladder symptoms. And she'd circled no to having bladder leakage or problems with exercise or problems with coughing or sneezing. And so I was like, okay, cool, we have a bunch of no's there. But then I started to probe Susan as to what type of activities that she likes to do. And she said at this point in time, even prior to her hip pain, she had to decrease her activity, and now she mainly just walks for exercise and does a little bit of body weight strength training. And I was like, oh, well, why'd you kind of decrease your activity? And she's like, well, if I try and do any kind of high intensity workouts or plyometric workouts, I end up leaking. And so I stopped doing them. So she stopped doing the type of workouts that she likes to do to avoid bladder leakage. So currently she doesn't experience any bladder leakage, but she's doing it by avoiding activities that she loves. And so that breaks my heart to hear that women have to avoid things they love to make sure that they are not having bladder leakage. So in Susan's case, there's still an issue there. There's still a problem that if she stresses her system too much with a higher intensity activity like running, like plyometrics, like high-level HIIT workouts, which are all great forms of working out, she ends up experiencing bladder leakage. So in order to avoid that, she avoids the things that she loves. And so that, to me, is a form of dysfunction. And there are things that you can do besides giving up activities that you love because of bladder leakage. And that, frankly, is a very slippery slope where women, as we age, oftentimes become less and less active. And one of the main reasons that we tend to give up an activity is because of actual bladder leakage or fear of bladder leakage. And the benefits of activity far outweigh the risks and the wealth of health benefits that are there are just too much to miss out on. Okay, we don't want you to have to feel like you have to give something up, because once we start doing less and less, we continue to do less and less. And so it over time can turn into us being more and more sedentary, which leads to other heart and circulatory and health issues. And so we want you to be active the way that you want to be. So if bladder leakage is stopping you from doing an activity, so maybe you don't get on the trampoline with your kids because you would leak. Maybe you don't try that new high intensity workout at the gym that you wanted to try because you know you'll leak. Then it is causing a problem in your life, and there's most likely some type of dysfunction there that you can do something about. So although in Susan's case, she wasn't actually leaking, she was avoiding activity to avoid the leakage, and we don't want to see you do that as well. So that was one of the scenarios that we see commonly here, where people didn't think they had a bladder leakage problem, but in actuality, they're avoiding activity to avoid their bladder leakage. The second scenario is more of a semantics thing, that many women, because bladder leakage is so common, think that it's just a normal part of aging. And so we had a patient, Mary, again, her name changed for privacy's sake. Mary came into us. She was about a 67 to 7-year-old woman whose doctor referred her to us to work on bladder leakage issues. And Mary came in and sat down and actually told us, I don't know why I'm here. I don't really have any type of bladder leakage issues, and I don't know how you can help. But when I got to talking with Mary more, it turns out it was all about her definition of what leakage was. So in Mary's mind, bladder leakage was only something that happened if you had a complete loss of urine. Maybe you felt like you had to go and you just, everything came out of you. And so, you had wet your pants, had to go change, clean up the floor. That was her definition of bladder leakage. She had, for several years, been experiencing bladder leakage with coughing, laughing, sneezing, even if she would bend over to lift up something. But it was only a drop or two, and it wasn't enough that she really thought about it much, and she just assumed it was normal. That, she'd had a couple babies, she was getting older, and so she just thought that that was normal. And so in her case, she truly was experiencing bladder leakage. So bladder leakage can be anything from a few drops to Niagara Falls. If it's coming out when it's not supposed to be coming out, when you are not wanting the bladder to empty, then that is bladder leakage. So, and it is not something that you have to live with. It is something that you can do something about. So many women falsely think that just because they've had a few kids, that it's normal for them to just leak a little bit when they cough, laugh, sneeze, get together with their friends and have a few drinks. All of that are common scenarios that you can experience bladder leakage in, but it's not normal, okay? So don't just assume like, oh, no, I just put a pad on and that's normal. I don't have to worry about it. There are things you can do to prevent the leakage because we don't want it to get worse over time. So those are the two scenarios. So I was wondering if any of you kind of found yourself identifying with any of those scenarios as far as thinking that you don't have bladder leakage, but then after listening in, realizing like, oh, wait, I'm avoiding activities to prevent my leakage. So yeah, that's a situation that I need to make a change on. Or as in Mary's case, the situation where your definition of bladder leakage needed a little bit of changing, and any urine coming out when you don't want it to is a sign of leakage, and there's things you can do about it. So if you identified in either of those situations, then I want to let you know that there is hope and there is help, and we would be happy to talk with you more about options for you to try and make a difference.